Next game on the road at Nashville 3 weeks from last night. The Raptors beat the Bulls 123-107 in Toronto on Thursday. Anthony Simons had 22 points in his first game as a Bull. Chicago overhauled its roster by making 7 trades ahead of Thursday's NBA trade deadline. Chicago looks to snap a 3-game skid when they return home Saturday night against Denver. The Nuggets, third in the West, they've also dropped 3 in a row. Number 7, Iowa State men's basketball home tomorrow hosting Baylor. 4 straight wins for the Cyclones, who are 20-2 overall. 7-2 in the Big 12. Last night, the number 10 Iowa Hawkeyes women fell 91-85 at home against Minnesota. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive. I'm Chuck Sanders on News Talk Radio 1410 WRMN.
Kohl's gets it. Valentine's Day comes with expectations, grand expectations, telepathic expectations, and heart-shaped everything expectations. Yes, even waffles. Kohl's has gifts that rise to the occasion, from romantic to playful, sparkly to sweet, or all of the above. Plus, get 15% off some of your finds. So go ahead, exceed those Valentine's Day expectations with Kohl's. Select styles. Offer ends February 16th. Some exclusions apply. See store or kohls.com for details.
A KFC tale in the pursuit of flavor. The Colonel made his $10 Tuesday bucket so full with 8 pieces of juicy, crispy chicken or tenders that it might just last you till Wednesday, if you've got that kind of self-control. I mean, some people want leftovers. Others are more into right nowers. The Colonel lived so we could chicken. $10, 8 pieces, one big deal with KFC $10 Tuesdays.
Prices and participation may vary. Taxes, tips, and fees extra.
This is Sarah Silver with your Fox Valley forecast, brought to you by KFC. Today, snow showers likely before 4, cloudy with a high near 36. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low around 8. Looking ahead to Saturday, sunny with a high near 23 and temperatures falling to around 21 in the afternoon. Expect a pleasant day ahead. Currently, it's 32 and clear. I'm Sarah Silver on the Talk of the Town, WRMN.
We know exactly what you're not thinking about right now. Wiper blades. But now that you are, take a moment to think about how Rain-X is the #1 brand of wiper blades in America. Why? Because Rain-X thinks about wiper blades all the time. We obsess, so you don't have to. Simply install our blades and then think about literally anything else. So choose Rain-X, America's #1 wiper blades, and then go back to not thinking about wiper blades. Rain-X. Outsmart the elements.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410, Elgin time, 9 o'clock.
The Elgin Police Department is dedicated to working in partnership with the community to promote safety and enhance the quality of life by serving with professionalism, encouraging open communication, and embracing diversity.
Engaged.
Partnering with our citizens and involved in our community.
Progressive.
Embracing innovative strategies while maintaining proven practices.
Dedicated.
Serving with integrity and professionalism. Elgin became an incorporated city in 1854 and installed its first police marshal, George W. Renwick. Over the years, the title of the head law enforcement officer changed from marshal to chief. And although the role has expanded, one duty has remained consistent: to ensure law and order for the citizens of Elgin.
It's time now for Fridays with the Finest, featuring Elgin's current police chief, Anna Lalley, on Elgin's hometown radio station since 1949, WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
Hello and hey, good morning everybody. Dean Lalley here with another segment, Elgin Fridays with the Finest, with Police Chief Anna Lalley. And Chief has a great guest in here that's no stranger to our station. So go ahead, Chief, you do your introduction.
All right, good morning, everyone. Today I have State's Attorney Jamie Mosser on with me. So thank you, Jamie, for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
I was just telling Jamie that I feel like she should have an office in the police department. So we work very closely with her. Always very gracious to take phone calls at any time and does just an amazing job. So before anything, thank you, Jamie, for what you do for the Elgin Police Department and all of Kane County. So, I've worked with several state's attorneys throughout my career as, whether it's an officer, a detective, or even as the police chief, and each one of them were great. And Jamie is just very, I could tell you, invested in doing the right thing and making sure that, the officers have a voice too. And I truly appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate the words.
So a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into Jamie, and why we're here to talk a little bit about the Trust Act, some immigration stuff, but few things this week in the police department. First, we wrapped up there's a case that we had a missing person that is now classified as a death investigation. So first and foremost, I want to thank the community for all the information that they gave to us. This is for 52-year-old Joseph Johnson that was reported missing on January 22nd, and subsequently on February 2nd, the West Dundee Police Department contacted us, and Mr. Johnson was removed from a body of water, and the Kane County Coroner's Office at this time has stated that the preliminary cause of death appears to be drowning pending the toxicology results. And so this is now an active death investigation that the Elgin Police Department is conducting. I want to, again, extend my condolences to the family and the friends of Mr. Johnson, and also say thank you to the community for giving us tips. So as we move through this investigation, if there are any updates, we will keep the community posted. So I wanted to mention that. Also, the yesterday and the day before, we had Elgin High School and Larkin High School. The students had a planned protest walkout. And so I want to, just remind the community when incidents like that are happening, where it may be disruptive to traffic or the area is congested, we will go on our social media and put out the information. It's very important that the community know, especially if there's a lot of people in an area. You may not want to go down into that area. So we do put that out. We had no incidents, no major incidents to report. So it's, when these things do happen, there's a determination that's made on whether or not we're going to post something. If it's contained within a certain area, we may not necessarily post anything because it's not disrupting traffic. But when it does, or there's a little bit of a moving protest, we do. So, thank you to the community for just, staying engaged with us. It's important that you get that information, and we will continue to do that. So that was the two things that I wanted to talk about and highlight from this week, and then really kind of talk a little bit about, we had a community forum probably almost a month now, and Jamie was there to talk a little bit about the Trust Act and some of the things, there's a lot of questions about, what Elgin officers do, what we can't do. So, I have been to several council meetings explaining it, meeting with community groups, having the community forum, and I think the more that we get the information out there and continue to talk about it, people, and I want to also say that I'm very aware that things that we may do may not be enough for people, or things that we do may be enough for people. So when incidents or things like this happen, whether it's police reform, this Safety Act, the Body Worn Camera Act, it's always good to sit and have conversations about how we're going to do things better, and try to work the problem, and be very mindful of people's sentiment and how they feel, and considerate of that sentiment, but also be working in the background to do the things that eventually take time to do, but at least we have to try. So I asked Jamie to come on just to talk a little bit about some of the work that is in progress, and really give her the time to talk about the Trust Act, to talk about some of the things that she'd like to mention, and then really kind of get into it. So Jamie, it's all yours.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. So, one of the biggest things that I've been trying to have people understand is that the Trust Act is a law that police have to follow. They don't get to disregard it. They don't get to pick and choose when they're going to do it. They have to follow it at all times. And the Trust Act has now become very political, where everybody thinks that this is a Democrat-led initiative. It was actually passed by Bruce Rauner a number of years ago, who was a Republican governor, because, right, he recognized that the role of our local law enforcement is to enforce our laws, not to enforce federal laws. So he's the one that actually put that into place, and yet somehow it's being put out there as some sort of democratic movement, and that's just not true. The Trust Act does say that local law enforcement cannot assist in any way with federal immigration enforcement, and that's the line. They cannot assist. Now, there are certain things they can do if presented with a federal criminal warrant. And so it's important for people to know that immigration enforcement can either be civil or it can be criminal. If a person is here undocumented, that's a civil procedure where the federal government has the ability to remove them. It can be escalated to criminal proceedings where warrants are being issued. And that's the only time that local police officers can actually provide some assistance. And that's assistance. It doesn't mean enforcement, it just means assisting when that warrant has been presented. Otherwise, they cannot do anything else to help. They cannot do traffic control, they cannot assist with the arrest, they cannot do crowd control. Their job is just to maintain the laws of the state of Illinois. And so I want to bring that into the incident that happened here in December 6th. Because I have been reviewing hours and hours of body cam, squad cam footage, videos that people took and shared with the Elgin Police Department, reading reports of things that happened, listening to the 911 calls. And what happened that day is there was immigration enforcement. Now, I don't know that I still have received the confirmation as to whether or not it was civil or criminal. Some of the officers on scene had heard from the ICE agents that it was a criminal warrant that they were waiting for to arrest an individual. This individual went into a home of people who live in our community, refused to get out. Eventually, the ICE agents actually had to break the door down to get this individual, take him into custody. Now, during this time period, people came to protest, which they have a First Amendment right to do so. Several 911 calls were made, including one call from the ICE agent who was originally involved in the chase of this individual, and then several other people who were within the community who said that they were being pepper sprayed, that there were rubber bullets being fired, and they feared for their safety. Watching all of this, I can tell you that the Elgin Police Department did respond timely, and did exactly what the law requires them to do in this situation.
Right.
And what's amazing to see for all of that is their first response as they went there was going through these crowds of individuals, even with the pepper spray that was there, and I believe they had the gas that...
They did.
Yeah.
They had dispersed chemical munitions, yes.
Yes. And so they went there just seeking who needed assistance. They set up an area for triage that was away from where the protesters were so that people could be safely treated. When they found individuals, they made sure to direct them exactly where they needed to go. They even transported some people to get the medical assistance that they needed. They walked through this asking for who needs help, which is exactly what their job is supposed to do.
Local residents, again.
Yes, all the residents, people who needed help. The most disappointing thing that I saw that day is how they were treated by some of those residents. They followed the law. They made sure when needed to de-escalate situations. They made sure to get medical attention to people, but then they were yelled at. People were throwing things. People were saying awful things about what Elgin should have been doing, when Elgin did exactly what they were supposed to do by law. By law, they can't interfere with anything that the immigration agents are doing. Now, if they saw an excessive use of force, they could absolutely do something, but that was not captured on any single body camera. There were videos that people showed where ICE agents were taking people into, or at least this one individual, into custody. Elgin was not there. They responded after the people had called about all of this. And so I will have a decision about what, if any, charges will be filed as a result of the December 6th incident within the next couple of weeks. We will probably do either a press conference or a very lengthy press release and release some of the video that we saw. But what I want to say is that the Elgin Police Department did everything that the law requires of them.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of touch on that too. You know, when that incident happened, and shortly thereafter, we're pushing information out to the community, right? And we're telling people, this is what's going on, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing. Thereafter, that incident came up, you know, at city council meetings or even at the community forum. And the sentiment in the community, you know, which Jamie is kind of hitting on here is, I understand that it appears that we're just not doing enough for people, right? And you know, as I said, you know, at a council meeting and multiple times, we answer calls for service. When someone calls the police, we respond. We get out there, we make the assessment, the determination. If someone is expressing their First Amendment rights, and you know, people yelling it's not a crime unless it depends what you're yelling, right? Depends what you're saying. But just expressing your frustration with something going on. You know, but there's a balance. There's a balance of, you know, if it's a public safety thing, if people were, you know, if it's you know, a public safety where people are getting hurt or there's criminal acts, that's different. So it's not a cookie cutter response. But then on the other side is we have to be very mindful of the Trust Act and what we can and cannot do. And then also that also leads to another problem, which is the perception that we're out there helping. So, when Jamie's, we push all this information to the state's attorney, which, I publicly said that she's reviewing it, the officer's actions, and I've said it publicly and I've said it, the officers are professionals. They did exactly what Elgin police officers do, professionals, in very difficult situations that they're not, not used to. I mean, we've had protests before, and some of those officers were out there, have been in some pretty significant incidents, and the professionalism, regardless of how people are, yelling and screaming, that's what's expected. So, but there's a process, right? Jamie has to look at it. It's her job to review it. We take the information. But I think it's important that, people, if you are needing any assistance, you have to call us. If we are not out there, I don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So,
And I want to comment on one of the incidents. There was a person who called 911 because he said he couldn't breathe because of the chemical spray. So a significant amount of the Elgin police were out there searching for this individual when I saw people getting in their way, demanding to know what they were doing. Why weren't they doing something? And the officers professionally said, we cannot assist and we cannot interfere with what is happening with ICE. All the while, they're trying to do their public safety duty, which is finding people. They're trying to find this individual to make sure that he gets help, because it's pretty significant when somebody's on 911 saying he can't breathe because of what's happening. And throughout all of this, people were just hurling insults. And again, and I agree with Chief Lalley, people have their First Amendment rights. I was embarrassed and insulted for the entire police department because of how people treated them when their anger is to the federal government. Their anger is not to the police. And if they're upset about the Trust Act, that again is a state initiative. That is by our legislators. The police can't change that, and they can't disregard it. So to that end, Chief Lalley, who wants to make sure our community is safe as possible, which means she wants to make sure the people who are protesting can do so without fear of violence, has asked us to look into writing an amendment to the Trust Act. And that's one of the things that we wanted to come onto the show to do. What we would like to do is to be able to give local authorities, local police, the ability to do perimeter control, crowd control, to get information from the ICE agents so that they can push this information out to make sure that the community is aware of everything that's happening, but to give local law enforcement the ability to protect our community in the way that they normally do, but how the Trust Act now prohibits them from doing so.
And that's the big part of, when you look at what's going on and you say, it's very easy, and I get it, I understand, and people are it's an emotional thing. It hits people very differently. We recognize that. Like, that is a very, no matter what in Elgin, we recognize and we try to do something to fix the problem, right? So having the conversation with Jamie and saying, hey, can we look at this? Whether or not we're able to do it, it does not matter to me. The fact is we need to try, right? And then, you sit with people who can kind of, it's one thing to sit and have a conversation about immigration, what people should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing with officers in a very sterile environment. That's easy. That is very easy. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to criticize. It's very easy but when you're actually in it, right? And that day, the officers are out there. I'm at the station with my command staff, two of my commanders. We're directing and giving the directive and the orders of what we're going to do, because ultimately what the officers are doing out there is coming from me, right? Because ultimately it should be me in the end. And I'm going to try to keep the officers safe and the community safe. But I also recognized a little bit of that frustration on both people, both for the officers and both for the community. So instead of going on this hamster wheel and constantly, it's like, let's fix the problem. Let's work the problem. So, working with Jamie, we've worked on the Body-Worn Camera Act. We worked on the Safety Act. She was on the show talking about that. That's how you kind of move through some of this stuff. Although it can't be immediate, and I think that's the issue. People want it now. Do it now. But if I tell an officer to go out there that potentially could get them arrested, potentially could get them hurt, or potentially could get them sued, that's not what I do, and that's not what we're trying to do. And then the same side, you don't want the community to feel that we're abandoning them. It's a very difficult situation, but you recognize it, and then you say, now let's start thinking. Let's start working to fix the problem, not just dwell on, well, can't do anything, just going to sit here and no, right? So I think...
and one of the sad things is, you call it politically motivated, which most of it is. They see law enforcement coming out, whether it's federal or local, sadly, the people don't know. They have all these protests that people are emboldened that, yeah, I'm going to stand up for this, and I think it's our time, and we have to do this, and we have to do that. But they need to understand what the guidelines are. Like the chief says, this Trust Act prohibits. The federal government doesn't check in with you and say, hey, we're going to go to this address, that address, the other. They just come in and do their thing, which is maybe wrong. I don't know. But you think they would at least check in and say, we're going to be in the area.
I think it's like in the very beginning of 2025, there were times where they would call us and say, hey, we're in the area of whatever. And then, as time goes on and as more as they're here, that communication, I can't control the federal government.
No.
I mean, so what they choose to do, they choose to do. My purview is the Elgin Police Department, the Elgin community, right?
And then the residents are getting that feeling that now you have an officer doing some other act in the commission of their duty, that they have the right to question them in the middle of it. And they're just going to get themselves in a bigger headache. Let the officers do their job.
And part of that too is if we had, I kind of go back to protests during, 2020, and, we had protests even before that from an officer involved shooting. And quite often, people are out there because they're expressing their sentiment and their feeling,
Emotion.
right? And I recognize that. I'm okay with that. But the other part of that is then after that part is done, and my thing is let's work together. Let's try to find a way to sit in a room with each other when temperatures are lower, when an active situation is going on. That is not the time for, sitting there and dissecting, how we feel and this and that. We have to make sure people are safe. End of the story, period. Officers and the community. Now, afterwards, right, let's sit down and let's talk. And let's have some, I always use our YEP program. Our YEP program is a great example of how people who were expressing something, right? Because that was a person that was protesting who walked around the station with me and told me his angst. And from that, we've created the YEP program, which is actually, without a doubt, had an impact on juveniles. That's how it works, right? It's okay to be upset. I recognize, I understand. I have empathy for that. I get it. But the other part is let's work. Let's do the work. Let's do the fix if we can. So, Jamie, can you talk a little bit about, so people, we're working on trying to make some suggestions. How does the process work so people understand like what it takes for you to actually do that?
Sure. So I like to tell people it has nothing to do with the dancing bill that we used to see in schools. It's a very long, drawn-out process. So what happens is I draft all of this up. I have to find a person in the House and a person in the Senate who's willing to be the sponsors for this. And this, I think we're going to be good with, because I think that there are individuals now who realize that the way for us not to become Minnesota is to make sure that our local law enforcement has the ability to protect our citizens. And so I bring it to them. They have to bring it to something called the LRB, which looks at the language to make sure legally it's written correctly. They may make some changes. It comes back to me to make sure we're okay with those changes, and then they put it into a bill number that actually gets put out. This bill then gets assigned to a committee, and so it just depends on what committee and who's pushing that. And then you have to have the committee chair call that bill for discussion. If it happens, I would likely go down there, and I'd invite Chief Lalley to go down there, and we'd provide testimony as to why we're putting this forward. And then they have to vote to get it out of that committee. If it gets out of that committee, it has to go to the full House or the Senate, whoever is first starting with this. Assuming there are no changes to that, they do a full House vote or Senate vote. If you get the majority vote, then it goes over to the other side. Hopefully changes are not made. What I found is we kind of ping pong back and forth with people making changes at the last minute, trying to put other stuff in it. Then it goes, same process over there where it gets voted, and then it becomes a voted upon statute that could, or a voted upon bill that could become a law. Then there's a certain amount of days it has to wait before the governor signs it, and if the governor refused to sign it, it goes nowhere from there. I would hope, given everything that we've seen happen in other communities and what we see starting to happen in our own communities, this should be a nonpartisan. This should be both Republicans and Democrats who want to make sure to keep our community safe. So it does take time. The minimum we're looking at is 2 to 3 months. So we don't have an immediate fix, but at least we're doing something.
Yeah, and trying to plan for summer coming, right? Like we have protests now that are we've had 2 so far this year, and then we had 2 with students, and it's February. So as the summer kicks up and as, it's like, let's do the work now. And also, the suggestions that we make as a police department, that's me also talking with the officers and talking with the people that were out there on the 6th and sitting down with them and saying, this is like from a very practical situation, right? I will tell you when the body worn camera law was written, you could tell that that was written in a very sterile environment where people had never used a body camera, had never thought about these multiple scenarios because you're not living it. You're not actually doing it. So theory is one thing. Theory is great to talk about. Theory is great to debate. But then there's this practical application of if we could do this or if we had this, it would actually help us. This is what it looks like, right? So that, having those conversations with the officers and recognizing they're out there, they're doing it, right? I'm the police chief. I'm directing them. This is what we're going to do. Here's our directive. But then saying like, tell me, what was it out there that if you could have done A, B, or C would have helped you? And it was great discussion, and it's a great way to, get that voice of the officer, the person who's actually on the street doing that type of work, right? And I don't forget that part, right? I mean, I'm not unless truly, I don't go and answer calls for service. If something does happen, of course I respond, like if it's happening in front of me. But you can't miss that part, right? So there's conversations that happen at a level of here, like how does this work and how could it work? And then there's making sure that we get the voice of the people that are actually doing it and making sure that we pass that on to Jamie and say, hey Jamie, this is from people who are out there. So and again, with the body worn camera law, there were things in there and we read it and we were like, what? Like this doesn't even make sense. You can't even practically do this. And so I think, most people are very well intended. I think when they write laws, right, they want to change something, they want it for the better. That's how it works. But sometimes, knowing what it's actually like, you cannot describe it. You can't, it's like this experience that you get, as a supervisor. You can tabletop stuff all day. You can read books all day and podcasts and this and that. Unless you actually are in it, dealing with it, the emotions, the sentiment, the community, the things that go on, the backstory, the why, like you can't really describe it. So I think, it's always important to get the people who are walking and having those things said to them. And, if we were able to do this more. So it's a 2-3 months is really in the big scheme of things, not that bad, right? Because, we're in February, summer's coming, if we're able to do something before summer, that's the best case scenario. If it goes nowhere, right? And Jamie, that potentially could happen. If it goes nowhere, I think at least people know we're trying, right? That we're just not sitting here saying, oh, well, that's, that seems kind of awful. And right. Absolutely not. Right. And if it doesn't go anywhere, then the next conversation I'm going to have with Jamie is, okay, what can we do now? Right? Like this never ends, right? She's calling me again. Yes, Jamie, right? Because
And
she
has both phone numbers.
I do.
for me.
I do, and I'll try both. But you get I think having the right state's attorney, and I do want to just say that, right? You have to have somebody who's on board to do that because I can only do this so much of it, right? And so here's her next step. So I think when you have people that truly want the community to be safe, truly want the officers to be safe, you remove the politics of everything, right? And it's just human. The human. Let's try to, different opinions are what make the world go around. Sometimes that causes a lot of conflict. Conflict's not necessarily bad. It's how you channel it, right? And what you do with it. So we have a few minutes left, Jamie. Do you want to talk anything specific about, in terms of, the cases that you do that are sent to you and then thereafter what happens if nothing happens and kind of like your process on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I have to look at this all is in 3 different ways. 1, did anybody break any state laws that day? 2, did the Trust Act get violated? Because if that happens. And then the third thing is what can we do to make sure people understand what happened? And so for state laws, I can't prosecute federal laws. I can potentially prosecute federal agents. However, the case law and the statutes are much different for a state agent like myself to be able to charge a federal actor. I have to prove that if they violated one of my state laws, that 1, they were not in their official course of duty, so they would have to not be enforcing immigration. They'd have to just be there doing something or off duty or whatever. And two, I have to show that both subjectively and objectively that it was completely unreasonable, with the case law saying that even if in hindsight it's stupid what they did, if in the moment they felt like they had to because of the totality of circumstances, that's the only way I'm able to charge them. And so that's a difficult burden to have. On top of that, even if I charge a state or a federal agent, by statute, the U.S. Attorney's Office can come in and take my prosecution and do whatever it is that they want to do with it.
Because we just had a question. Someone asked, can local police arrest a federal agent or vice versa? Yeah, on its face you can, but where's it going to go? The reality of it, and what are the circumstances that made you as an officer step above what federal had a right, in a sense, to do, to carry out. So that's messed up. Yeah,
it is. And that's what puts our officers in such a predicament when they go out, because they cannot interfere with this federal immigration enforcement. And the most important thing for the public to know is they don't have to tell local law enforcement what they're doing. They don't have to show proof. They don't have to give their name. They don't have to give their badge number. They don't have to do any of this. And so our law enforcement was there to make sure that people were safe and to make sure that they had medical attention when they needed it.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and for the other part is I have to look, because I, as the state's attorney, have to look to see if there are Trust Act violations. I can already tell you, having reviewed all the body camera from that day, there were no Trust Act violations. The Elgin Police Department did exactly what they were supposed to do that day. And I have had to report an officer in Kane County to the Attorney General's office because of a Trust Act violation. None of that happened. They were very respectful, even in the face of the utter disrespect that they got from many individuals.
Yeah, so as we close out, I also want to remind the community on our Transparency Hub, if you go to the main page, there's an immigration icon. You can click in there. Everything is in there, including our policies, our procedures, information to the Trust Act. There's QR codes where you can download video of any incident that you see and you want to give that video to us. There's also the the resolution that the city passed of ICE agents not being on city property. We're also going to expand that as soon as Jamie comes back with her decisions on the December 6th. We'll be putting the video footage out there, the police reports out there. So this is full transparency, and again, public education on there, resources on there. So I just want to, tell the Elgin community, we hear you, we're with you, we're listening. Regardless of where you stand politically, our goal is always to keep you safe and to keep a humane and respectful approach to things.
And I vaguely remember, Chief, when early on when the protest or when these actions by the government was taking place, you had some copycat people that were dressing up. So if you have the concern that this is or isn't a nice agent, call the police.
Call the police.
The police could come and investigate it, make sure it is what it is. But again, they are not allowed to interfere with what's going on.
Yep. So thank you, Jamie. Again, appreciate everything you do for Elgin and for Kane County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was Fridays with the Finest. Again, we had State's Attorney Chief Mauser in the studio here today with Chief Anna Lalley. Thank you. Tune in next week, and we will see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Get ready for Around the House every Saturday night from 5 to 7 p.m. on WRMN AM 1410. If you're a homeowner or contractor looking to tackle those projects that feel a bit too big, this is the show for you. Join Eric along with his knowledgeable guests as they dive deep into everything from DIY renovations to creating a healthy home environment. We'll provide you with the tools and tips you need to complete your projects with confidence and ease. But it's not all work and no play. We believe in having fun. Our passion for home improvement shines through as we help you save time, money, and reduce the stress of DIY. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, don't miss Around the House. Tune in every Saturday night and let's tackle those home projects together.
When tragedy strikes, you need more than a lawyer, you need a voice. Romanucci and Blandon fight for justice in cases of personal injury, wrongful death, civil rights, and medical malpractice. With over $1 billion recovered, their results speak loud. Call 312-458-1000 or visit rblaw.net. That's 312-458-1000. Romanucci and Blandon, national impact, personalized care. No fee unless they win. Proud supporter of America's First Responders Fest.
Hey Bear fans, want your business heard during every heart-pounding moment of the game? WRMN 1410 is now offering in-game ad spots for Chicago Bears broadcasts. Be part of the action as thousands of die-hard listeners tune in each week. Whether it's a touchdown, a turnover, or a timeout, your message will be right there in the mix. Spots are limited and going fast. Call WRMN 1410 today and score big with in-game advertising that delivers results. WRMN 1410, where Chicago comes to play. Get in the game with the Chicago Bears and WRMN.
Kids today live in a world full of social pressure, bullying, and substance abuse. LEAD has a solution. LEAD connects law enforcement agencies with schools to deliver tested, proven, and effective anti-drugs and violence training to kids. Learn more about LEAD, Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence, and our work to create safer, healthier communities at leadrugs.org or on social media at We Are LEAD. Sponsored by LEAD, Inc.
The Supplemental Security Income Program provides monthly payments to help meet basic needs, like putting food on the table, paying the rent, or buying new shoes for growing feet. You may qualify if your income and financial resources are low, and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability or who is blind. Call 1-800-772-1213 or go to ssa.gov/SSI to start to apply. Produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Hi, everybody, and happy Friday. I hope everyone had a good week out there. Steve Thorne here with another Community Spotlight show, and I'm joined here.
I just got it. Okay. All right.
Matt, nothing gets past him.
It took me a while. Then I was like, oh, wait, I remember. Yeah.
I'm luckily joined here with my wonderful producer and the host, co-host here now in the morning, Triple M, marvelous Matt McNeil. Matt, we had a nice little chat this morning about flea markets.
Yes.
How are you today?
I am good and excited for the flea market season.
The flea market season is upon us. It's coming. And of course, the Kane County Flea Market is, I think they just about, at one time they were every single month, but I don't think they're in, what is it now? They're not in December, or they're not in January?
It's not in January and February, although it is, I think it is coming up February 28th and March 1st is the first one.
Okay.
For the Kane County Flea Market.
Well, I've always remarked about how they advertise their dates. Their date is the first Sunday of the month and the previous Saturday.
Yes.
That's how they say it. And in this case, it's appropriate because it's the first Sunday of the month is March 1st, but the previous Saturday is February 28th.
So you could say it's coming up this month.
You could say that. That's good. You're picking up my type of lingo. Well, I know that you really enjoy the Kane County Flea Market. I have to tell you that we've found a lot of interesting things there over the years. But at one time, it yielded much, much more towards the antiques than the crafts.
Yes. I've been noticing that more crafts are popping up.
Well, I think frankly, I think it's conducive to the market. I mean, look at the people that shop there. The next generation. You've got a lot of older folks like me and older that still love antiques. You don't have that percentage in the younger generations. Some of them can take them or leave them. Some of them just plain don't like them. I hear over and over and over at some of the auctions and estate sales that none of the relatives want grandma's stuff.
Yep.
So they're just selling everything. And I mean, to me, what's really amazing is they're selling everything, including things like I've been at auctions or estate sales where they're selling yearbooks that are signed,
Yeah.
the parents' yearbooks,
Or the family
grandparents'
pictures with names.
family photo albums.
Full.
You know,
albums,
you know, I knew one guy, a nephew, and here's a photo book of his grandma and all this different stuff. Don't you want this? I don't even know those people. That was the answer.
It is kind of sad to see.
It is, as opposed to in the older days. Oh, sure, I would treasure that. That's great. That's my grandma and all her friends.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to when my grandparents passed, aunts and uncles said, we want Matt to have the family pictures. And so I'm the genealogist of the family.
Well, and that's why they wanted you to have them, because you're going to preserve them and you're going to archive them and educate furthers down the road, whether you ever have any kids or whether you are an uncle, whatever, a cousin, you can still share and educate all the family tree as it gets down the line.
Yep. That is, if they're interested.
Well, that's right. That's right. You know, you can always try to educate them, but whether they're receptive.
Yep.
The reception level is the level of interest. Well, it's good to be here, and I hope that you did have a good week. And this was Groundhog Week, and we have fun with that every year. That's when we watch the movie. Every year, my wife and I watch the movie, and she is very close with some of her cousins. She has a variety of cousins. Some of them are closer. When I say closer, they're like an hour away, an hour and 15 minutes away. So that's usually that's the closest. But she has a close cousin I think she's in Kentucky or Tennessee. And she found out that she and her husband, that's their favorite movie. They watch it on a regular basis, and they often quote lines from it to each other. Like when something comes up or something that makes them think of something, they quote a line from it. And that just came out this year when she was doing some texting after we watched the movie. And she found that pretty humorous. But we sure had fun watching it. And of course, I texted to you that the uniqueness of it being in Woodstock is the as it was shown in the movie, I think it was the Punta Cana Hotel. That's the Woodstock Opera House. And the Woodstock Opera House was designed by Elgin architect Smith Hogue. And Smith Hogue designed all the Elgin fire barns, the old Elgin fire barns. And he designed the Dunham Castle down there in Wayne. And he designed the Bosworth Mansion, which is the big one up Highland Avenue at the corner of Woodland and Highland, next to the Highland Apartments. It's kind of a turquoise and mauve colored with a carport on the side. And he designed the Wing Mansion.
How cool is that?
So sadly, the Wing Mansion, one of the things he did was with the Wing Mansion being on the highest point, a lot of people never thought about that until we bring it up to them. But you're going uphill from downtown Elgin all the way to our house, and then that's the crest, and then it starts going down.
Mhm.
And if you go to the left, it starts going down. And if you go to the right, it starts going down. So we're at the peak. And that's why it's research by late Elgin historian Mike Alft stated that it's the site of ancient Indian burial grounds.
Mm.
And a couple arrowheads have been found in the yard, and
Wow.
people have wanted to come and do some metal detecting with their little devices around the yard and everything. But
Mhm.
you know, we haven't really found much, otherwise. But interesting that being that it was on such a high point, that Smith Hogue decided, being that the Wings barred no expense in their, probably no cap in their expenses when they built the home, for safety purposes, if you go up to the third floor has beautiful Douglas fir flooring. But under the Douglas fir flooring is a layer of cement
Oh, wow.
on the third floor.
Cement.
Cement. Well, it was done as a vapor barrier in case the house was ever struck by lightning, and that would prevent it from burning down.
Hmm.
Little did he know it was going to be tested, because in 1897 it was struck by lightning. It smoldered all night, and then a fire started, and that's when Mrs. Wing went up against her husband's wishes, the fancy spiral staircase to the grand ballroom, and she got trapped up there, and she burned up. Well, she died. She would have died of smoke inhalation before she burned up, but she still was burned up when, by the time they brought her body down, it was all charred. And terrible graphic description in the paper.
Were there any photos, crime scene?
There's only a photo of the house, the front and the back, that we've ever seen, and I've got it enlarged.
I know I've seen it before.
And and it looks like a flat top, 2-story flat top, because the whole roof and the porches and dormer are burned off, because that burned off, but the house didn't burn down because that cement saved it as a vapor barrier. And that's thanks to Smith Hogue, who built the Opera House in Woodstock, site of the Groundhog Day and all those celebrations. And, it was interesting, too. I saw a little snippet of it on Channel 5 News, and it showed that actor Steven something or other, but he's the one that played Ned Ryerson.
Oh, yeah.
Watch out for that first step. It's a doozy. Well, anyway, he was there as the guest of honor, and up there in the booth. And
there.
you know what? He pretty much looked the same. You could tell it was him. Let me put it that way.
Yep.
He didn't look the same, but he you could sure tell it was him.
Yeah. Well, we were there too. It was fun at the recent Groundhog Day event in Woodstock.
So what was it like out there for you? How crowded?
You know what? I felt that last year was more crowded. I felt that this year was not as cold. I think there had been a little bit of a chance of some freezing rain that day, so maybe that's why. It was still a very good crowd, and there were people that were out there who were all dressed up. We did, dressed up in terms of, they had a Woodstock Willie hat on and all that stuff too. So it was fun.
It's kind of hard to dress up as people or as characters from the movie, because really the only standout would be a groundhog.
Or the mayor with the hat. That's what we did. We wore the top hats.
Sure. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And of course, that's Bill Murray's brother. There was in the movie. I'm kind of surprised that Bill or his brother don't ever attend that event. But I think Bill lives in Chicago, but maybe not this time of year.
Yeah.
But I know that. I did read an article about him, whether he would ever want to do a Groundhog Day 2, but he said no.
Yeah.
But
some people just want to move on, I guess.
Yeah, I know it.
But not Steven, the actor.
Yeah.
He loves it. So.
It's too bad they don't have a few other ones out there too. but it sure is fun. And, you know, the premise of that movie, if there's any listeners out there that aren't used to it, I mean, it basically turns a very grumpy, negative person into a wonderful, caring, sharing, giving person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's what life's all about. And I think it's great because I love that message. And it just shows positivism. Well, we don't have a lot of time today. Here we are talking about all that. But one thing about it is that, as you know, I always start each week's show with a dedication, most often a memorial. I had a number of comments last week when I did the memorial to Carolyn, Mike Warren's late mother-in-law, Laurel's mom, and be giving them a copy of the show this week. And they were at the actual service and the burial, so they weren't able to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
But they are looking forward to getting a copy. But I saw so many people I knew there at the service out in West Chicago, and she will be dearly missed. But we don't have a dedication today. But I'm also still getting every week comments about music memories. So I do want the listeners to know that Matt and I are working on scheduling,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's going to come back weekly or potentially every other week or maybe even once a month, we're working on a date that might work. But, you know, the station is saying, call in, tell them what you like, tell them what you don't like, tell them what you want. And who knows what that might yield? Who knows? If there's enough squeaky wheels, you never know what it might bring.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, supposedly a lot of people said they wanted local news, and that's what's prompted Dennis to be doing it from 10 to 11 every
Mm-hmm.
day, and they wanted that continuity from Monday through Friday. But maybe if enough people said Monday through Thursday works, Friday brief snippets on the hour
Mm-hmm.
would work, and we want the music show, hey, that would be great. That's the best time slot for me,
Yeah.
but it's not the best time slot for currently the station's situation of lineup. But they still want to hear from you, 847-931-1410, just not during my show here. But I did look at the last Music Memory show, and the last Music Memory show was on the 9th of January, and we did 1954, one song, 1964, 5 songs, 74, 5 songs, 84, 5 songs. Well, I thought I'd just do something fun for music because so many people identify me with music and the show, and they like it. Today in music history, in 1955, today, on this day in January, the number one hit on the charts, on the Billboard charts, was the one and only Bill Haley and the Comets with Rock Around the Clock. Let's hear a few bars.
1, 2. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on, join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till for broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the clock strikes 2, 3, and 4, if the band slows down, we'll yell for more. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till for broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the chimes ring 5, 6, and 7, we'll be right in 7th heaven. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till for broad
Bill Haley and the Comets. They were a American rock and roll band formed in 1947 and continuing until Haley's death in 1981. The band was also known as Bill Haley and the Comets and Bill Haley's Comets. From late 1954 to late 1956, the group recorded 9 top 20 singles, one of which was number 1 and 3 that were top 10. The single Rock Around the Clock was the best-selling rock single in the history of the genre of rock and roll and maintained that position for several years. So pretty cool. There's a little history of Bill Haley and his Comets, the Comets, etc. They were from Chester, Pennsylvania. Now we jump to 1965, and in 1965, the number 1 song on the charts today was the Righteous Brothers with You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling.
You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips, and there's no tenderness like before in your fingertips. You're trying hard not to show it, but baby, I know it. You lost that love and feeling. Oh, that love and feeling. You lost that love and feeling. Now it's gone, gone, gone. Oh.
The Righteous Brothers. Oh, what a beautiful song and beautiful medleys that they had together. How ironic I use that term, and that's because it was Bill Medley and Bobby Hatfield. They started in 1962 in the Los Angeles area as part of a 5-member group called the Paramours. But then they changed their name to the Righteous Brothers when they became a duo, and obviously they went on to claim to fame. They actually, one of them passed away, and the other's still performing with a different guy, but it's just not the same. All righty, just thought I would share a little music before we finish off the show. 1975, the number 1 song today was, on today's date, The Hustle by Van McCoy and the Soul City Symphony. And 1985 was St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion by John Parr. So there's our little music history for the day. Just thought I'd get a little bit in with this shortened half-hour show that I've got. Want to say hello to a few folks out there. Want to say hi to my dear wife, Maureen, also known as Peach, for all the love and support I get each and every day. And the Kathys, the 2 Kathys in my life. Catherine Smith, I know she's up and at 'em, and she's so relieved. And yesterday she was calling me every 5 minutes with another doctor appointment. And had kind of an interesting thing when Advocate Sherman Hospital decided to get rid of the teacher retirement program division of Blue Cross Blue Shield. So all of a sudden, after 25 years, she's got to change all her doctors. And Catherine's a retired 3rd grade teacher from the Dundee area. And so we got a bunch of new doctor appointments in the Hanover Park and Schaumburg area. And Kathy Newby, my neighbor, the other Catherine, and one's with a K, one's with a C, and both retired teachers.
Nice.
And so hi to Kathy Newby, neighbor Newby. And all my other friends out there, Lorraine Frost, I hope you're doing well. And everyone else, last Friday night was the Elgin History Museum trivia night. And sadly, I was under the weather, Matt, and so I had to pass, and our team was my wife and Kathy Newby and Sherry Blazier. And we were last year's champions. And this year we wanted to defend our title. And sadly, we weren't there to defend. I thought the three girls could go on, and Sherry Blazer had worked all day long at the Elgin Public Museum, being their director, and she was hosting a large event last Saturday night. And she said, I needed a reason to pass. And she goes, I'm so tired, and I got so much to do tonight or tomorrow night. So she took a pass, and then it was just two girls, and then they decided they didn't want to go with without the other two of us. So our team didn't go. But I heard they had a great turnout, and they had a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to get some copies of the questions, and I'll bring them for an on-air show in the future, as we always talk about Elgin. So anybody ailing out there, I hope that you know that we're thinking of you. I know Kathy Newby's going to be having knee surgery coming up, so wish her well with that. I mentioned the Elgin Public Museum and the Elgin History Museum. Make sure you visit those two wonderful establishments. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't know how lucky Elgin is to have those. Keep in mind also, I always want at least a little blurb about an animal. Anderson Humane in South Elgin, they always have animals for adoption if you're thinking of having a pet. But I also promote this, especially for you seniors that maybe lost a pet and then they said, I'm too old to adopt a dog now. You're never too old. That dog will give you love like nothing else, and you in return. But if you're concerned about the expense, how about fostering? Why not call them and learn about it? They pay the bills. Granted, the animal is still up for adoption, but it's on a secondary list. So they're not promoting that particular animal heavily, like the ones you go into the shelter. If you want to adopt and you go in the shelter, you're going to go in and see plenty. You're going to see enough. You're going to adopt them that way. So if you foster one, they pay all the bills, even the food, but you still have it as your pet. So what do I have, 1 minute?
We got about 30 seconds.
30 seconds for me to say goodbye. Thank a policeman every day. Thank a fireman every day. Thank a veteran every day. See someone in the store with a veteran's hat on, tap them and say thank you for your service. I wish everybody a peach of a weekend. Be careful. It's warming up out, though. Next week's supposed to be in the mid-40s. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a peach of a weekend. We'll